It's high time we talked about NFTs, the non-fungible tokens. In this video, we will go through what they are, how do they work, and we will also cover the two NFT standards, ERC-721 and ERC-1155. So, an NFT, the non-fungible token. It's a unique digital identifier that cannot be copied, substituted, or subdivided. What does it mean though? NFTs are one of a kind. They are unique. It means that there is no other copy of the existing NFT somewhere in the digital space. They are non-fungible, which means that if you would like to trade it, swap it for another NFT, you will always get something completely different. Think about the ERC-20 that we already talked about and the situation where you can exchange one ETH exactly for one ETH. What you give is basically what you get back one-to-one. This is not the case with NFTs, as every single token is completely different. And lastly, NFTs are actually digital assets. So what we see, what we can watch, can take a multitude of forms. And they can be an image, an audio, it can be a representation of real life item or some art. It can also be, for example, a tweet. Anything that can be turned or already is a unique digital object. So NFT is actually a token that is created by a smart contract. And what is important is what is actually linked to that specific token. First of all, who minted the NFT? So the NFT creator. Second of all, who is the current owner of the NFT? So who is actually, which account, which address, which we will be talking about later on, is linked to that unique token. It also holds the history of ownership from the token creator, from different owners to the current one. Because remember, as tokens are stored on the blockchain contains the entire transaction history. So we can easily track what was the journey of a specific NFT. And then it also holds the storage location of the digital assets. Here I'm saying it's like NFT storage location, but what you need to understand is that the NFT is the token itself, which is stored on the blockchain, and then it's linked to this image or video or another asset that is the representative form for us. And you might be wondering, like, what do you mean? Aren't those stored all on blockchain? Well, actually, these files can get pretty big. And remember, whenever you want to perform a transaction on blockchain, you need to cover the gas fees. And in this case, what you want to do is to minimize whatever you're planning to store on a blockchain network. So storing images and video files is not the best idea, but there are solutions for that. And one of them is IPFS. It's the interplanetary file system that allows storage and allows users to access different files or websites or really any kind of data. How is it built? It's basically a connection between different devices that all communicate together. So it's a protocol that defines a certain set of rules and allows to store files in a secure and very efficient way. It works with hashing algorithm, and what you can actually imagine is that each file has an individual fingerprint that is unique, like our fingerprints are unique for us. Each file will have a unique hash. And what happens with an IPFS is that if the file is too big, it's cut into several different pieces, and each piece will be stored within a different device within the network. How can you actually retrieve them though and glue them together? Well, the owner of that specific file will have the actual hash that will allow that person to retrieve all the elements and put them together in an order so that they can use the file, they can share it, they can access it as they want. And the important thing to remember here is that when we create a hash, we are basing on a specific data. And that data creates something that is unique to it. So remember, when we change the information that creates the hash will change as well. So we make sure that this data is immutable. And also remember that we cannot go from the hash to the underlying data. We cannot decrypt it. So we cannot read and figure out what was it based on. So thanks to that, the network stays secure and your files also are secure, and you're the only one that can actually read them if you have the hash. To give you a comparison to the Web 2 protocol, which allows you to access websites or files as well, the HTTP, this is a centralized system where all the different devices, when they want to access files, they are talking to really one centralized server that is holding all the information, and usually also is owned by one of the big companies that control all the traffic in the internet and all the files that are stored in there. So coming back to the NFTs. Let's have a look how NFTs are actually stored and where IPFS comes into place. So as you can see here, we have our blockchain, and whatever is stored on the blockchain directly, so it's written into the blocks, we can say that it's on chain. Whatever is outside of it will be stored off chain. And now, there are lots of different systems, devices all around the network that can be either IPFS, which is the decentralized solution, or also some centralized providers like Amazon or Google. And now the tokens are actually stored on chain. So they provide information that I already mentioned before. And in order to be able to link to a specific asset like an image, they have to access it. And these images, these videos are actually stored off the chain to make it cheaper and make it more efficient. But as you can see, the tokens can actually communicate and get the assets thanks to the decentralized or centralized servers. And this is really important to remember. The NFT is a token which is stored on chain, and the visual representation, the audio representation, the whatever digital asset it is, it will be most usually stored off chain. So now let's talk about the NFT standards. Starting with 721, this is the foundational standard that is describing how the non-fungible tokens should be built. And you can think of it as a minimum interface for a smart contract that it has to include, so that the NFTs that are built from that can be managed, owned, and traded. On the other hand, ERC-1155 is a different standard which actually allows to describe multiple, like rules for multiple tokens within just one single smart contract. And it can include the fungible tokens, it can include the non-fungible tokens, and also something in between, so the semi-fungible. And thanks to that, thanks to the fact that we can actually include lots of different types of tokens within one contract, we just have less transactions, and also we have the lower gas fees and lower storage costs. So now let's have a look at the ERC-721, and we will actually visit a landing page that describes this standard and have a look at the interface of the smart contract. We are currently on the ERC-721 webpage, as you can see, ERC-721.org, which provides us information about that specific standard for the non-fungible tokens. And as you can see, it is a free open standard that describes how to build the non-fungible or unique tokens on Ethereum blockchain. When we will scroll down, you can see the code which is related to the ERC-721 standard. And at first glance, it's actually pretty similar to the ERC-20 we've seen before. There is the balance of, there is the transfer from function, there is also the approve function as well. However, the difference is that we are not passing the value as we did with the ERC-20. So with the approve function, we said, this is the value that this specific address can withdraw from my account. In case of NFTs, I cannot really say, okay, this is the value of the NFT that I will transfer. So I will transfer free copies of my NFT to Benny. The thing is, my NFT is unique, and only one version of it exists in the network. So what we are providing to the function is the approved, which is the address that can withdraw the token from my account, and also the token ID. Token ID, which stands for the identifier, which will allow you to recognize what is the specific NFT that is unique and one of a kind within the space. And if you have a look at the code of the standard yourself later on, you will notice that the token ID is also used in other functions, and it's the main difference between the ERC-20 and the ERC-721.